Fam 305. Yes, we live. The Fam 305. Take a ride. The Fam 305. Yes, all night. The Fam 305. Let's get right. The Fam 305. Sit back and take a ride. The Fam 305. Let Guru pick your mind. The Fam 305. Mama G ready all the time. The Fam 305. K-Dub sniping on the right. The Fam 305. Dre talking ish all night. The Fam 305. Like, share, and subscribe. The Fam 305. The Fam 305. The Fam 305. Like, share, and subscribe. Hey, no pa tanto. No pa tanto. Hey, no pa tanto. Hey, no pa tanto. No pa tanto. No pa tanto. No pa tanto.
There you go.
All right, y'all. Here's your host for tonight for the Fam 305 podcast.
Yeah, that's horrible when people don't come. That's the worst. No pa tanto.
Hey everybody, it's your boy Guru from the Fam 305. This is another solo episode. This episode's a quickie, and I'm gonna do. And obviously, this is not for everyone. So if you're not in fantasy sports, I guess skip to the next episode, or maybe go back and listen to one of our Freaky Friday ones. But this episode, we're gonna get into fantasy football. That's right. Every year, I'd like to do a fantasy football episode. And this year I'm going to do one. It's not going to be that long, but I'm just going to kind of give you a roadmap to success in fantasy football. Those of you who do not know what fantasy football is, it's basically football, but in the fantasy realm. And there's gambling involved. All right. So, and I'll be honest with you, I love fantasy football. And the biggest reason is, well, 1 and 1A. 1A is I can win some money. Okay, so I gamble a little bit of money, and if I win in the leagues that I'm in, I can make some money. So it's a money-making venture. And then the second thing is, when you draft these teams and players, you will watch games you usually don't watch. Okay, I would not want to be watching a West Coast, 49er Rams game if I'm not one of the fans of one of those teams. But with fantasy football, you have players that you draft and you will watch them because you want to win. So you actually have an interest. So I think it all the way around, it definitely helps the NFL, and it helps gamblers, and it helps these websites. And there's so many of them out there. I mean, hell, ESPN has a site where you can draft teams. Yahoo has one. CBS has one. You have Underdog Fantasy. There's just so many. My FFPC is one that I recently got involved in. That's more high stakes and dynasty leagues. So, if you're into football and you follow the players, at some point you guys and girls should get into this. I think I like it, and you don't have to gamble. You can join free leagues. So anyway, so those that are getting ready to draft teams in the next couple weeks, because this is draft season, like basically the last 2 weeks of August and the first week of September is draft season. We call that. All the drafts are going on. I have, for example, I'm recording this on the 24th, going into the 25th. I have a draft on Saturday, the 27th. I have a draft on Sunday, the 28th. And then I also have another draft the next Tuesday, right? And then I got another draft that next Saturday. So, I got drafts coming up. And a lot of guys and girls that are in fantasy football, this is the busy time of the year. So I always, when I do a draft, obviously the first thing you want to know what order where you're picking. Leagues vary from 10 all the way to 16 teams. I've been in 16 team leagues, which are very hard. I've been in 10 team leagues, which is like every team is pretty much loaded. So I like that mix of 12 to 14. Okay, that's like kind of a sweet spot if you're going to draft. But if you're challenged, get into a 16 team if you can find one. Very competitive. All right. So number one, you got to figure out where you're drafting from. What pick? Are you the first pick? Are you in the middle and you're last? My preference is I like drafting either early or late. I like having the first few picks or the last few. I do not like being in the middle. And one of my leagues, I'm in the middle, which kind of sucks. But again, I can draft them anywhere, but I prefer drafting at the top or at the bottom because you get more players. When you're drafting, in my opinion, I think there's the talent's there. Now you can get talent at any pick early on, okay, but I like it when I have picks back to back because I can see who's going to be there. Because if I'm picking first and don't pick again until the 24th pick, if it's a snake draft, there's a lot of guys, a lot of players that can go. So you're not gonna know who's there. But if you're picking close, you can pick a couple guys. And these are snake drafts that go from 1 to the last pick, and then the last pick goes back up to 1. All right, so that's the thing. Once you know your draft or your order, then the next thing you have to start looking at players. But make sure you look at your point systems. A lot of people, I've been in leagues where they don't look at the rules, they don't look at the point systems, and it costs them on the draft. Because an easy one is touchdowns. Are they 6 points or 4 points for quarterbacks? Is it a PPR? Meaning, do they get points for catches? Some leagues you don't get catches. If a guy catches the ball, you don't get points for those catches. All right. Leagues that are PPR, running backs are probably even more valuable than non-PPR, or they call them standard. So you have to understand who's there. You have to understand who catches the ball in the backfield's PPR. Non-PPR, then maybe you're not worried so much. Okay. So look at that. Look at your rules. Then I always say look at coaching changes because stats from one year to the next may change. Players leave teams. Coaches, thing with the Dolphins, they got a new head coach, a new coordinator. Their offense is different, and they added a few guys. Tyreek Hill, Mostert. I mean, these are Tyreek Hill's the fastest player in the NFL. Okay, now is he going to do what he did in Miami that he did in Kansas City? I don't know. Maybe. And what does that mean for Jalen Waddle? Does his numbers come down? So these are things you have to look at. You have to look at first. You look at who the new coach is, right? Then, I always say you can't really screw up the first 3 or 4 rounds in a draft. If you know anything about fantasy football, 9 times out of 10 you're gonna probably get a pretty good player if you go by best available. All right. In my opinion, what wins you titles? 2 things. In my opinion. And I'm going to tell you right now. The first thing is, if you get that guy, and it doesn't have to be your first or second pick, you get that guy early, probably the first half of your draft, that ends up being the guy. Last year was Jonathan Taylor from the Colts. A couple years ago was McCaffrey. All right. A few years before then, I would say 3-4 years ago, if you had Mahomes early in his career. Okay. If you had those guys and you drafted them, and you drafted your team, and you knew what you were doing, you were probably going to get to a title or get to a title game or probably win your league just because of the points these players are putting up. So that's the first thing that helps you. And the second thing is you got to hit on some of your late round guys. You got to hit from rounds, I would say from rounds like 10 to 4 to your last round. You got to hit on a couple rookies, a couple sleepers. If you hit on 1, 2, a backup receiver, backup runner that ends up becoming a starter, it's only going to help you down the road. Okay, so, I always tell, the first part of that, you really, you can guesstimate, and I say part of this is luck. We can sit there and say, hey, I think this guy is going to do this player is going to put up these numbers, but at the end of the day, you can't control injuries, and you really can't control the play calling. Now, we can look at patterns, we can look at what coaches are doing, and you can look at the history. But that's why I say always look at the coaching staff. Look at the coordinators. Did they change the offense? Did they change coordinators? Did they change head coach? All right. Hell, even other players. You have one quarterback throwing the ball. He leaves. Another quarterback comes in. How are they going to react? Okay. How does a quarterback's numbers get adjusted when he loses their best player? Look at Aaron Rodgers. Is he going to come down a little bit? Okay. Who does he have to throw to? So these are things you have to consider. So if you look at a draft and you look at previous year's numbers, it's not always going to correlate to the next year. Not always. Sometimes it does, and you can see that. All right. So obviously we all know the top guys, top running backs. Taylor's going to be the first running back taken off the board. McCaffrey, another guy, again, coming off an injury. He's a little bit older, but he's going to get the ball. All right. So those are probably your top 2 running backs. Najee Harris, Pittsburgh, another bell cow. And there are very few bell cow running backs on teams anymore. I would say McCaffrey might be one. Like I said, Taylor, but although he might get some, Hines might get some carries, but Taylor's basically going to probably do what he did last year, so he's a bell cow. Again, and when we say bell cow, we mean players that get the ball. They're the primary running back. Okay, a lot of teams do not have that. For example, the Patriots try to figure out that running back situation. Is it going to be Harris? Is it going to be Stevenson? They drafted a guy too. Who the hell knows? Okay, but you have teams that you're pretty certain. Mixon for Cincinnati, he's another guy. You're pretty sure he's going to get the majority of the snaps. Now, let's look at guys that used to be good in running backs. Ezekiel Elliott. Again, 5 years ago, beast. Now, I'm not comfortable with getting him in early on. He's definitely an RB2, and he's got Pollard behind him that's going to take care of him. So he's not a guy that, first round, maybe not even second round. He may not be a guy you pick, maybe late. And I don't have the ADPs in front of me, but what I mean by ADP is average draft position. You can look at a player, and if you look at their ADP, you kind of see where they're going. Okay? So you can see in drafts, and, there's thousands and thousands and thousands of drafts going on. Okay? That you can get an idea where players are getting drafted. Okay? Because everyone sees the same information. And, it's always, what are you hearing? So, again, Ezekiel Elliott, watch out. Now, as far as running back sleepers, Breece Hall with the Jets, look at him to eventually take more of a lead. The running back out of Seattle, the name escapes me, but he's a guy that's probably going to start at some point. He's a guy you want to look at as a sleeper. And the San Francisco, there's a running back they got. Again, don't have it in front of me, just kind of spitballing here. But look at those offenses. Now, with the 49ers, be careful because they have like 3 running backs that can carry the ball. So it's very hot and cold. So don't expect. But like I said, these are guys you want to look at. Breece Hall is not going to be available late in the draft. He's probably going to go mid-rounds. All right. So be careful. The guy from Seattle, I think his name was. Excuse me. Now I'm going to say Watson, but I'm probably mispronouncing his name. He's not. He's probably mid-round pick too. So those are just a couple of running backs if you're looking for guys down the road. Also, Atlanta. Look at the running back situation in Atlanta. Okay, they have a young back. Again, the name, I'm sorry I don't have the name in front of me. But look at him. As far as quarterbacks, obviously the big ones. Mahomes, Rodgers. Okay, these guys are going to put up the points. Now, guys to look at. I wouldn't say sleeper, but guys that are up and coming. Trey Lance. This guy can run. He can throw. That offense, it works perfect for him. Okay, looks good. Look at Justin Fields. Now, Justin Fields, he's a bit of a project still. He did play last year. New offense. All right. Weapons, limited weapons. Okay, but the guy can run. Okay, but I from limited action I've seen him and I've seen the Bears, I do like him. So he's a guy that I would say I wouldn't have you as a quarter. I wouldn't have him as a quarterback 1, but if you need a good, probably a backup, or you're kind of betting on him maybe taking over for an established veteran, maybe he's a guy you take a flyer on, probably in the later, probably 6th, 7th round. Again, I don't have the ADP in front of me, but I imagine that's when he's going. He is a quarterback too. Okay, so those are a couple quarterbacks. Those my Miami people, Tua, look, he's going to put up some yards. All right. The one thing I will say about Tua, like always, and I've said this since he came out of Alabama, is he going to be able to stay healthy? He's not a big guy. He's a little smaller. He's got that Drew Brees built, and can he stay healthy? And, excuse me, last year he played. Last year, no. He got hurt. He got hurt early on. So he didn't play. So, and then of course the year before he was recovering. So he's a guy that, when healthy, I think he can put up a full season. I think he's definitely low. Again, he's in that 7th, 8th round, 9th round. He's not going to go early on. And those of you that are Dolphin fans, don't fall and wanting to take him. But he's a guy, if you need a quarterback too, again, if healthy, I think he's going to have a pretty good year. Right? You got Tyreek Hill, you got Waddle, Secchi, Cedric Wilson. Good, you know. So those are quarterbacks. As far as receivers, we know the top receivers out there: Devontae Adams, Tyreek Hill, Mike Evans for Tampa. Okay, these are guys that you draft them, you're in good shape. Okay. Now, as far as keepers or guys that you want to look at in later rounds, Sky Moore, Kansas City. Juju's the number one, but Sky Moore is definitely going to start getting a lot of work. Okay, so look at Sky Moore. Look at the receivers, a couple receivers from Green Bay. Watson, who's injured right now, so he's going to fall a little bit. Okay, and then the other guy, oh God, the name escapes me, but we'll go back to that guy in a second. Chris Olave from New Orleans. Okay, another receiver. Michael Thomas, fantasy darling for many years, but he's right now currently dealing with a hamstring injury, coming off a foot injury the last year and a half. He's getting up there. So Olave's one of those guys. I think by the end of the year, he's probably going to be their leading receiver in the sense that he's going to get the majority of touches if Michael Thomas is out or if he's injured and hobbled, which I think that's most likely the case. So look at him. The other guy, again, there's a receiver on the Jets. They drafted. Look for him. He's a guy, a later round draft pick you can take a look at. And I'm going to give you a deep sleeper, all right? And I'm a Dolphin fan, so maybe I'm a little bit of a homer. But we call him Easy E. All right, number 87. His last name is Ezekuma. Something. It's like a long name, Ezekuma. I'm pretty sure I'm hacking his name, but that guy, he looks like he's got the goods. He's a bigger receiver, good hands, and again, it's preseason, right? But he's been doing it in practice. He's done it in a couple games. So look for him late in the draft. I would say 11, 12, 13 if you need a receiver to stash. I wouldn't say he's a starter right now. He's not a starter. He's probably 5th, 6th on the depth chart. But by the end of the year, you may have a guy that may get a couple games for you. Okay? Just he may have a game. He'll flash a game. So this is not a guy you want to look at in drafts and say, hey, he's going to start week 1. No. I'm telling you is you put him on the back burner, maybe draft him. Or if he goes undrafted, keep an eye on him. Because I think at some point he's going to start putting up the numbers. He looks the part. So yeah, tight ends. Obviously we got the big ones, the Kettles, Kittle, Kansas City tight end. Waller has come back from an injury and injury season with the Raiders. These are guys that you draft. Hawkinson, he's more of a mid-round tight end, but he's a good tight end, solid. You can't go wrong with him. These are players that if you see them, you're in good shape. Okay? Now, keepers and guys that you want to take a look at Cole Kmet for Chicago. He looks like he's getting some run in Chicago as a tight end. Trying to think another good tight end that I remember seeing and hearing about. The Jacksonville, again, Evan Ingram. Y'all know him from the Giants. He's a guy, again, not a young player so much anymore. He's kind of bounced around. Maybe look for him to make a bounce back on that offense. Remember, Peterson's offense is really good with tight ends. They involve the tight ends. So Evan Ingram has a chance. So just keep an eye on. If you need a tight end late in the draft, late rounds, maybe you didn't get yourself a tight end, and he's out there. you know what? Maybe he's a guy you should take a look at. All right. I'm not going into kickers and defense because honestly, you shouldn't even have to worry about that. I would say get your kicker and get your defense last 2 rounds, best available. All right. I mean, honestly, I've seen games winner you could win or lose games because of that, because of your kicker and a defense. But honestly, you know what? Don't put all your eggs into picking a defense and a kicker. All right. I mean, you can just get the best available, and then on your bye week, obviously you can pick something up. So those are my things. And again, at the end of the day, fantasy football, a lot of it's luck. But if you don't know and you're getting into a draft for your first time, always look at the rankings on whatever website or app you're using. You're not going to really go wrong. But down the road, again, there's certain players that you may or may not know. You won't not know the players like we call them deep sleepers. Players that are rookies, you might not know. Okay, ESPN and all these websites, they do a pretty good job, but some guys you won't hear a lot about. Okay, and then they're not putting that in there, so you really have to know names. So honestly, try it out, see how you guys do out there. Okay, good luck. If you're playing me in any of my leagues, I hope you lose, but enjoy it. And like I said, it's fun. Hopefully you can make some money if you're doing it just for fun, and it gets you to watch other games. So again, that's my fantasy football spectacular episode. I hope you guys learned a little bit. And if you didn't, oh well, you got to hear me speak for 20 minutes. And again, this is the Fam 305 solo episode with the Guru. And thank you for listening. Remember, you can find me on Twitter. It's going to be fam_guru. No, it's guru_fam 305. I believe that's right. It's been a long day. Also, you can find us on Instagram, fam 305. Facebook, we have the Facebook page. Dre does a good job with that. We're on every single podcast website. You guys know that. Please drop us a line, a rating. Tell us how great a job we're doing it. You love hearing us. Oh, it is guru_fam 305. I think that's what it is on Twitter. But anyway, just look us up. We're also on the Fam 305. You search us for on Twitter, you'll find us. All right. Thanks for listening. We'll check you again on the flip side. Peace.
Thank you for listening to this podcast. Make sure you follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at the Fam 305.